Well, welcome back, 7 Days to Die modding fans. This is Zith, and today I want to cover the first in a series of tutorials about the new character pack, which is a community project to create the FunPimp compatible entities, new characters for the game that can be used in vanilla. There's a post out on the forums. Go ahead and read about the goals of the project. But today what we're going to cover is what a FunPimp's zombie character looks like inside, what the rigging looks like, and the requirements for it. And this will form the standard reference architecture, the standard template for all characters going forward to ensure their compatibility. Once you have this, you can refer to it and make sure that your new entities conform to this. Any problems that you have are going to likely relate to the fact that you did something different. So let's go ahead and cover what that standard looks like and what's involved and go from there. First thing I want to mention here real quickly is I also included what I call an entity cube. That is a simple cube with a transparent texture on it that allows me to see where the character is standing in the game. It is placed at Y as a basic cube, placed at -0.5. That makes the top of the cube at 0, 0, 0, which is where you want your character to stand. And so it enables you to precisely coordinate the feet location as well. So I use that. I recommend you do it as well. So let's look at this. This is a standard zombie pulled right out of the game, ripped out of the game, and we'll cover that in some later video. But basically, it's not something you need to do to make your own entities as long as you have this reference standard. TFP names their zombie standard nurse ragdoll. You'll find different nurse prefabs in the game assets, but you want the ragdoll one because that's what has the most information if you're going to rip your own and try this on a different character. The naming isn't important for our purposes. You could call it Ralph. The game doesn't care about what you do this top parent name, but what is important over here is that it is at 0, 0, 0 and at a scale of 1. The tag is not required to have a tag on the top parent. If you do tag this with the enemy tag, E_enemy, that means when you type in on the console kill all, this entity will die. If that's not there, best of my knowledge, it won't die. So if you want, like for friendly animals and stuff, and you don't want to die when you do kill all, don't tag it. On the top parent, they place the animator here. The animator has a couple of pieces to it. It uses a controller. In this case, it has a controller named Zombie Controller 02. That is provided. That controller is already put on this character, so we can look at it real quick. And as you can say, here's the controller. It has 3 layers, a base layer, an override layer, and a full body layer. We will not concern ourselves with that right now because we're not going to make any changes to it. We're just going to reference it on the topmost parent animator object. It also has an avatar. In this case, this zombie has its own avatar, but most of the avatars which contain the metadata about the rigging is standard because they use the same rigging on all their characters. So we're going to use Zombie Standard 01 avatar in our reference model. It's important that you check root motion. The TFP characters use root motion, which means they actually move when they walk. So if this character here, if we were to find a walk animation, I'll go down to walk forward here, and I press play, off they go. And so that is a root motion walk, rather than standing on that block walking in place like we used to use. Okay, so we have to make sure that if you're going to get your own animations, they have to be the ones that support root motion that actually move. These are default settings, normal and cull update transforms, and it has a line of draw grouping on it, which basically uses a lighter weight mesh as distance between the player camera and the character happens. So we won't cover all that. You do not have to have one of those. You can simply have a single mesh on your entities. It still works just as well. What is different on the TFP rig is it requires a child object in the rig that is above the hips that the hips can hang off of, and the reason for that is that object, I name it Origin, that's what they do. I recommend you name it the same. I'm not sure what would happen if you called it Ralph. You're welcome to try. But that object, that child object, must be tagged E for underscore BP underscore biped root. That is entity underscore body part underscore biped root. That controls the animation and the movement and root motion. You have to have that. Under that origin child is a empty child called footsteps. That's used to for the script that controls what sound that the game should make when it walks on snow versus dirt. Because it uses a script, we cannot use it. We'll have to find a walk around, but for compatibility, let's go ahead and be standard and put that footsteps object there. It has to be, again, spelled and capitalized exactly that way. Under the origin, the main body part is hips. That's pretty consistent in most rigs. It must be tagged, and it must be tagged E underscore body part underscore body. It has a collider, and it has a rigid body on it. This is the only body part that has just a rigid body. All the other ones, such as the left upper leg, in addition to that, has a character joint. I put that on there so it actually will work. Without that, it doesn't work. TFP, I believe, uses a character controller with scripts and substitute of this, but we can't use scripts, so we have to go this route. Unfortunately, it works just fine. I won't cover all the details in here. What is important is that it specifies what body part is connected. But when we make these ourselves, the Ragdoll Wizard will fill that in for us. So this right now is all default. I'll cover the Ragdoll components in another video. So what's important again now is we have the left upper leg, it has the correct tag, and then if you go to, say, the left leg, it has a different tag, E, BP, lower left leg. These are all in the tag manager that comes with this project. If you use a default tag manager, you will not have these tags, and you'll have problems. So it has to be that. The layer is always default. There is one exception to this. If you scroll all the way down, I added an additional empty child object here off the top parent called collider. The collider must have large entity blocker as the tag and the large entity blocker as the layer. This collider, as you can see, is a cylinder collider that goes from about middle of the head all the way down to about the calves, and about the same dimensions, circumference as the entity itself. This is what the vehicles hit when it tries to you try to run over a zombie. That's what it's hitting. Without that, you will not get it to collide in Ragdoll like you would expect it to. So that has to be put on there. The other components that we have in here that's might be new to you is the gore children. Let's backing up here. Each of these major body parts have a gore child that hangs off of a location. In this case here, the lower leg gore hangs off the upper leg, and if I come down here, the upper leg gore hangs off of the hips. And why that is because each of these gore childs has a very specific location on the entity that mesh will, when the leg mesh comes off, the gore mesh is substituted in at that specific location. Now, when you're making a new entities, as long as they're the same size, you can kind of copy and paste these gore children here and put them on your new entity, and they'll be in approximately the right location. But what I recommend you do is to go ahead and visually understand where each of these gore children are going to attach. And so if you have a character like my Eve character that's really tiny, you'll notice that these by default are all in the wrong spots, and you will need to drag, reorient using this command here and move that to the correct location on your new entity so the gore appears in the right spot. Otherwise, you're going to have leg gore on the hips and so on and so forth. That pretty much covers that. The only other thing I think worth noting in here, there's these roll children that you will not see in your entities, but that's not important. They really don't do anything for our purposes. The animation seems to work fine without those. The other critical thing is you will notice off the left hand there is a left weapon child, and then there is a right weapon child off the right hand. That's where you will go ahead and put your gun mesh or knife meshes and so on if you want to put a weapon on the model before you export it, rather than letting the bandit code substituted on. And there's issues with that, so we're going to assume that everyone's going to add weapons to their characters in Unity for this point in time. but you would put it right there on the right weapon. You can hang it under it or whatever, but that is the reference point for that weapon. And I think that pretty much covers it. There's head gore at all, and he says the gores have their own unique tags, whereas the head itself would have the e-body part head tag. That covers most of the standard architecture. If you go ahead and create your own zombie or pull your own zombie out, you have to go through and make sure it matches those major body parts exactly as specified. So I hope you learned something today, and with that we'll start on the next video.